Hello and welcome to this video on what makes the different kinds of malt different. Unlike society, a diverse mix is not always a good thing in beer. In fact, you need a very strict ratio, or quantity of certain kinds of malt in beer making to get the right flavour, aroma and appearance. If you don't do this, the beer just won't be right. No amount of political correctness can fix the taste of bad beer. The challenge is that malt is barley that has been exposed to water, allowed to germinate, and then baked to kill the barley and give it a roasted effect. This provides accessible sugar from the barley starch, caramel flavours from the roasting, a dry product that can be milled, and a variety of other products that are practical to ferment. It is as basic as a white girl Starbucks order. That process is straightforward, but does not explain how you get chocolate malt, caramel malt, Munich malt, crystal malt, and so on. We can start with the basic malting process. While we were glib in saying that it is fundamentally the same, it is true to some extent. It is in the details where things get, well, more detailed. Brewing malts have historically, and certainly in modern times, been tailored to meet the needs of a diverse range of beer styles. Each has very specific flavours, and, because of this, they need to be, well, specific. But also, colours, enzyme activity, and the fermentable sugar content have also changed to meet that specific style of beer. That means that malt has been selected for, if not over centuries, at least decades, to allow a brewery to achieve the specific flavours that they want, along with the appearance and aroma. Now, flavours can be things like a bready, biscuity, caramel, toasted, roasted, and various others, along with the coloration such as being extremely pale or extremely dark. Coloration is, well, it's going to be the primary factor to affect the colour of the malt and certainly the final coloration of the beer. Then you have the effect it has on both the body of the beer and how it feels in your mouth. Different malts will have different levels of unfermentable sugars. Dextrins are the most common example, and these are going to alter both the beer's body and, to a lesser extent, the head of the beer once you take it out of a keg or similar. And then we have enabling fermentation. The base malts are what are going to provide enzymes that convert starch into much shorter sugars, initially into maltose and then into glucose. Specialty malts typically lack the same sort of concentration of these enzymes, but in turn they do add flavour, so it's something of a trade-off. This is basically a balancing act between what is tradition and what is innovation. For example, historical beer styles rely on specific malt, because that's what they were made from and for. While more, let's say, craft or experimental breweries tend to rely more heavily on unique malt flavours. This has driven the diversity of malt as we know it today. It's a creative and technical desire that's been met to some extent. So we start with how do you get different varieties of brewing malt and how they created. Well, to start with, you have your barley. Now, depending on what this is, it can be a different kind of barley. It can be different sorts of treatments that are applied during the malting process, and there are a range of other factors that come into play here. We'll focus primarily here on barley, but bear in mind that other grains such as wheat and rye, and we could arguably say rice, are also malted, so just be aware of this. So variations in the malting process, the selection of your grain, and everything else lead to the distinct types of malt. Starting with barley selection, there are mostly here two kinds of barley that are used, either 2-row or 6-row. The difference is in their protein content, starch yield, and to a certain extent flavour. A 2-row barley, this is typified in some respects like say Maris Otter, is preferred because it has a plump grain and rich in flavour. This is typically used more for craft brewing. 6-row barley has higher protein and enzymes and is more used for American lagers and as an adjunct for brewing, mostly again owing to that high enzyme content. And then we have the growing conditions. The barley itself can be significantly affected by, on a larger scale, the region's growing practices, the soil, the climate, and similar. This is why, for example, European barley is very different to, say, American barley, and to a lesser extent, say, Eastern European, such as Ukrainian barley, versus German barley. What happens with the differing conditions is it affects the barley's ability to produce starch, the protein content, the husk content, and to some extent the malt characteristics, although we would argue that that's more affected by the malting process. To use a simple example, barley from a cooler environment that has more water and is typically wetter would have more moisture and certainly a different flavor profile than that from a drier, warmer region. In very broad terms again. And then we have the steeping stage in the malting process. This is when you soak barley in water to allow it to germinate. The moisture content can increase between 40 and 45% from the initial stage of soaking. And the duration of this and the temperature will affect how much modification of the starches within the barley grain itself begin to not only break down to be turned into something useful for the barley thinking it's going to grow up, much like an anti-vaxxer's child, only to then have its life cut terribly short. At least in the case of barley, this is, in an oven, and thankfully not for anti-vax children. The degree of modification and the degree of moisture soaking through the barley grain is going to affect how much of the enzymatic potential is going to be kicked off. Effectively, the more, moisture content and the more moist the grain, the more enzymatic potential is going to be there. Then we have the germination itself. The barley is allowed to sprout, and this is what turns on those enzymes. The primarily one being here amylases, although there are some others just not as significant. The length of germination, depending on how long it goes for, and as a result how extensive the soaking of the grain is, will affect how much of the starch content within the barley gets converted into those more useful sugars. Typical timeframes are 4 to 6 days. The shorter germination means less enzyme activity, but more intact starch, and is used in traditional beer, whereas the longer germination time is typically used, arguably, more for simple mashing processes. A traditional lager generally requires longer mashing because of its shorter time frame. We also have the germination conditions itself. Now, these are one of the major factors that's going to produce specific malt types. Mostly here talking about base malts with a high enzyme content and activity, and occasionally specialty malts with some very unique flavors. So temperature and aeration are the big factors that kind of come into play there. Then we have the kilning and roasting. The kilning and roasting is what takes the live green malt that's been given a chance to live and kills it by drying it. This does halt the sprouting and it does develop a certain amount of flavor. The kilning then proceeds to roast it, and this is what leads to the malt varieties, to an extent. Low temperature kilning is somewhere between 80 and 100 degrees Celsius, and these will produce your pale malts. These have a lighter, more bread-like flavor, but they also have very high enzyme activity. They're also typically referred to as base malts. Depending on what you're making, these can make up between 70 and 100% of the beer's grain content. Then you have moderate temperature kilning. This is 100 degrees Celsius to 150 degrees Celsius. These are going to make things like Vienna or Munich malts. They're between golden and amber in coloration and typically have a typical, or characteristic malty flavor. Because of the higher temperature, they do have reduced enzyme activity, with it being more moderate, and these are used in things like lagers, amber ales, and so on. Then we have high temperature kilning. This is a jump of about 50 degrees, so now seeing at 150 to 220 degrees Celsius. These make specialty malts like, say, caramel or crystal malts, chocolate malts, and black malt. They are sweet, caramel, nutty, and roasted in their flavors, and this is all due down to the Maillard reaction. Because of the high heat involved, the enzymes in these malts tend to basically be destroyed, and as a result, they generally make up a very small proportion of the total malt content, anywhere between as little as 5% all the way up to 20%. Typically, the higher end is both a combination of flavor and color wanted, the lower end is mostly looking at notes of particular flavors and a darkening overall. Some malts will undergo a specialty process, and these rather obviously are going to contribute to the specialty category of malts. The caramel and crystal malts are examples of these. They're stewed before kilning to help with caramelization of sugars. These create a much sweeter malt and also a variety of unfermentable sugars. Then you have smoked malts, which are dried over wood fires, and these can be used, for example, in the case of smoking, for, say, whiskey. Then you had acidulated malts, and these are treated with lactic acid bacteria. This helps in lowering the mash pH, making it more acidic, and it's used in various sour beers. Specialty malts, as mentioned, are made by either modifying the general process or by the use of additional processing other than the normal process of soak malt, let malt germinate, roast malt. These are commonly, although not always, done at higher temperatures. Although in some cases they can do things like dehusking of malts, and this removes the husk, which does reduce the astringency. It does arguably result in a smoother flavour. And then, as mentioned, there are non-barley grains that are also malted, and these can produce distinct textures, flavours, and so on, but for now we'll focus primarily on malt. What makes the malt varieties different is mostly down to chemistry. Chemistry is in terms of the way they change the composition of flavour, colour, enzymatic activity, and the application in brewing. For example, starch and more broadly sugars. Your base malts are particularly important because they have a high starch content, which is then easily converted into fermentable sugars during the mashing process. By contrast, specialty malts have more unfermentable sugars, but because of that they make the final product rather more sweet and the body is more heavy. Proteins are another factor to consider here. Protein is important when we're talking about head retention, so that a foamy top to your, let's say, pint of beer, that's going to be because a greater amount of protein is present. But it also does have an effect on haze. The other noteworthy thing here though is that some malts, because of the high protein content, may lead to off flavors if not dealt with correctly. And then we go back to the issue around enzymes and the fact that your base malts will always have a higher diastatic power, that's enzyme activity, and therefore able to convert far more starch into fermentable sugar compared to those malts that have been more heavily roasted. Flavor-wise, pale malts tend to be light, bready, and grainy. Things like, say, Pilsner. Your Munich and Vienna malts tend to be more toasty, malty, and slightly sweet, such as your Marzen. Caramel crystal malts tend to be more sweet, rather obviously caramel tasting like, and toffee-like, so they're commonly seen in amber ales and IPAs. Your roasted malts have more a coffee, chocolate, or burnt flavour, and used in things like stouts and porters. Smoked malts are, let's say, obviously smoky, but more akin to, say, a preserved meat in some respects, and this can be used for Rauch beer. And then you have your non-malt grains like, say, wheat, and this is used for things like Weissen beer. In terms of colour, well, the colour is going to be fairly straightforward. The more roasted the malt, the darker it is. The colours range from pale, this is 1 to 3 for Pilsners, and dark, which is 500 plus for black malt. Kilning and roasting temperatures basically determine this entirely via the Maillard reaction and caramelization. Enzyme activity is, as mentioned, typically going to favour base malts, with a sort of range, let's say, from base malts right the way through to more or less your darkest roasted malts, such as chocolate, that just don't have a lot of ability whatsoever. And then we have application in brewing, where, as mentioned, your base malts provide most of that enzyme activity and therefore allow for fermentable sugars. This is why your typically lighter malts are used more for higher alcohol beer, which might not sound like it makes a lot of sense. Finally, specialty malts will be there not so much to add the enzymes as they are to add weird sort of complexities, the flavors, colors, and body. And then you have adjunct malts. These are non-barley malts that are used, for example, to add texture or flavor, and almost always specific to a certain style, rather than the broad application of malting. As we mentioned, a lot of these differences arise from the kind of barley used initially, 2 and 6 row cultivars. And because of this, you get a difference in starch, protein, and flavor potential from the very get-go. The very seeds that are planted, or in this case grains that are planted, will have direct implications for the final results you can get. In terms of malting parameters, you have a difference in the control modification, that is how much enzyme content and sugar availability is there. The kilning and roasting, that is the temperature and duration, will have a direct effect on the flavor and color development because kilning and roasting is what drives Maillard reaction and caramelization, and specialty processing, such as stewing, smoking, and acidization, was going to create your specialty malts and unique malts, typically speaking. If we were to look at a range of different kinds of, let's say, malt varieties, you have Pilsner malt, which is very light, crisp, and is, well, rather obviously used in Pilsners, but also light lagers. A pale ale malt is rather obviously used in pale ales, and it's because it's slightly toasty. Then you have Munich malts, which are typically more rich, that is, they are more, let's say, heavy in their mouthfeel, but also, unsurprisingly, malty. They're used in your Marston's and Bocks. A caramel crystal malt is sweet and, unsurprisingly, caramelly in flavour, used in amber beer, red beer, and IPAs. A chocolate malt is rather obviously chocolatey flavours, but also coffee and cocoa, used in stouts and porters. Black malt is used to produce, well, unsurprisingly, a burnt flavour, but also considerably more roasted malt flavours, and used very sparingly, but it is used, obviously, in dark beer, because it contributes to that dark beer coloration. Now, wheat malt is used in wheat beer, and smoked malts used in various specialty beers. The different varieties of brewing malt fundamentally exist to provide brewers with what they need to make their beer style, and a lot of the time to decide just what sort of colour beer they are making. Everything from a light beer, which is practically white, all the way through to something that resembles tar. The variety of malts pretty much are a direct result of the intention to create what is a specialty or specific barley, and then malt for the particular beer style that is favoured either in the place or at the time when it was made. And of course you then have the malting process, which can then be drastically modified, not only in the steeping, germination and kilning stages, but by applying specialised techniques after that. The differences in flavour, colour, enzyme activity and chemical composition are also going to be something that not just breweries as a whole, but obviously the farmers that grow the barley, have been working on for a long time. This is why you have a wide variety of different sorts of malt available. It's not just that malt is barley that's been processed, it's been processed in a variety of ways. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing and subscribing, and please do post any comments, questions or suggestions that you have below.